What's up, everybody? This is Colin. I'm live in the Digits Club again with Manel Sort from G4AL. Thank you so much for coming on board here once more and answering our difficult questions. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Exciting. The opportunities are obviously coming. Now everything is rolling. We've seen a lot of G4AL since the last AMA, so we have some follow-up questions. The founding agents did discuss a lot of the material for the opportunity coming to DigitsPad on November 9th. For all of the Digits agents NFT holders, quite a big opportunity, quite big guaranteed allocations. So if you are an NFT holder by then and you're actively staked, the first big opportunity. Manel is going to tell us everything about the token, right? A good thing which I noticed is that the white paper has been updated. You got some nice graphs and everything in there right now with the allocations, the lockups. Everything is quite clear. Let me start out with the tokenomics, right? Usually one of our favorite topics. When it comes to a layer one gaming blockchain, I have no idea. Usually we review small projects, right? And your project is quite big. What is the total supply of 10 million relative to normal supplies that we see of, let's say, 1 billion, right? It's 10 times more. Some chains have maybe 1 trillion or uncapped. How did you come up with that number?
So that number comes from the estimate of the use of the platform based on our experience in games. So it's very important to understand the use of the game gold token as it was conceived. So I'll put an example of a platform that's very popular, which is called Immutable X. In the case of Immutable X, the token use is when you pay the transaction fees. So for example, if I transfer, if you buy an NFT that I have, and you pay, let's say $100, you will pay equivalent to 2% of that $100, so $2, and that will be paid in Immutable X currency. Okay, but usually the transactions in Immutable X, the prices are set in Ethereum. In our platform, that's completely different. Like any transaction in the marketplace is using game gold token. Okay, so if I was to buy an NFT that you have, I will pay. I will need a total of 102 game gold token, 100 for the transaction plus 2% of the fee. Okay, that's very important because that makes that's a significant difference in terms of modeling the tokenomics. Now, based on this, what we did was we structured it by the launches we have, like the ones we control, and we looked at making sure that there will always be a very strong demand versus supply, so that we will come into a situation where there is a significant demand of token versus the token that's available in the market. So looking at the launches that we have, and that comes mostly from what will be Elemental Riders and Diamond Dreams, and the main driver of traffic is Diamond Dreams because of its scalability. With pretty safe assumptions like 5% in user to payer conversion, and for example, in the case of Diamond Dreams, an estimated monthly spend of $20 in Elemental Riders, it's slightly higher, well, significantly higher at $100 per month because of and that's for per paying user, not for all the users, just for these 5% that pay. And then with all of these numbers and being relatively conservative in terms of how much the games can scale in terms of performance marketing, we came up with the numbers that during the first quarter after launch, we have around 290 million demand in total tokens. And basically there is a supply of 160 million. Okay, when we say the demand of token, that's based on an assumption of price of 0.02. Okay, so that is 4 times above the sale price of the private sale. If you look at these two numbers, you see that it's pretty close, the supply versus demand, and that we're talking about not the total supply, but the supply that's not controlled by G4AL. Okay, that the supply,
of course, like the investors that could potentially supply shock the dump.
And not all the investors will be willing to sell, so some will be willing to retain the token at that point.
Not me.
So that creates that creates offer demand. So what we did then is we did that for all the several quarters. So once we get to the Q4 next year, what we have is that there is a total demand of, in the numbers we have, in the forecast numbers, we have a total demand of 3 billion token versus an analog token of outside the hands of G4AL of 1 billion and 2.8 billion in total, considering all the token in the market. So that means that we plan the token and the total supplies based on the numbers we had and creating a significant demand versus supply. So this will mean that the price, but basically the token will have a value because people will need the token to buy things in the game.
Sure.
And they will be, and the price of the token will be a matter of supply demand. So of course, as we've planned that there is always more supply than demand, even if the token unlocks, we have more and more players in the platform. That creates an increasing demand for
probably the other way around now, more demand than supply.
There is more demand than supply. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. So basically, we have that the demand at Q4 was 3 billion, and the supply outside of the hands of G4AL is 1 billion. So we're having a
would give
ratio
basically a potential 200%. Yeah, potentially.
That will be in demand supply. That's demand supply. That's assuming like everyone puts their token for sale, which of course in many cases not the case, because some of the investors want to keep the token to speculate as they see there is a significant demand. If they see that there is demand, and they see demand growing over time, then there is a reason, a very clear reason to hold the token, because
definitely. When we look at these economic models, right? Because obviously you refer to who designed these economic models? Was that like an outside consultant, or did you just put the team together and you guys did it all together?
It's three parts. So on one hand, we have the external part, which is Trivia. It's a team specialized in data science, and they look at metrics, games, etc. There is the part that we have of internal experience, like myself, on game modeling in the past, because I've done a lot of that, as we explained on the last call. And then also we have a team member within the team that's a mathematician that also worked on the models to make them work.
Right, so and I assume those models are not public, right?
Not right now. I was thinking whether we could make them public. It's tricky. I mean, because the models, they have one part, which is the marketing. And the marketing is a very unique way of, it's basically what I brought to King when I joined. And that was actually used for the marketing of Candycrush, for calculating the lifetime value. That part will be difficult to disclose without
it's proprietary. Makes sense. It's just interesting to see what you came up with, and even if it's like at a later stage, once you've already completed it, I think it would be tremendously helpful for the entire space in general, right? For your expertise and your additional credibility. When we look at the token, right? So the total supply, it makes sense. What was the reason to basically split up the token sale into two rounds? Basically a private sale, which would function for us as a seed round, and a pre-sale, which would for us be a public round, right? Why 2 rounds instead of 4?
So
the regular 4.
Yes, so the reason we are doing this is because the private sale helped us at getting some financing for the development and setting everything up. The public sale for us is part of the marketing campaign at the end of the day, to let people know that we exist, that the project exists. And that's something we are working on now. For example, I've been discussing with Levan from Seedify about the best strategies for this. And we're thinking also at incorporating further Launchpads so that the game has more visibility, and also the platform and the chain. So that's very important, because the more people know that Game Gold token exists, and more people holds Game Gold token, the more demand in the area of speculators, not only gamers. So here, as I was pointing out before, in the modeling, we've been very careful about modeling both. On one hand, you have 3 parties here. You have the gamers, you have the investors, okay, and then you have G4AL. The G4AL part we control, so we can control that part of offer demand. Then we have the investors and the gamers, and it's very important that we pair them in a way that the gamers have a lot, like create the main demand. Like there is more demand from the gamers than investors that can sell token.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
gamers would have some loyalty to your project as well. And I doubt that most investors will have much loyalty. They more have, I assume, loyalty to their own bank, right?
That's right. That's why we model the game, the tokenomics this way. We model the tokenomics based on demand. So we want to make sure that the token increases in value. As you know, the team has a really long-term vesting, like 10 years. So
Yeah,
we
why is
really
that?
look, because I wanted to make sure that the team looked at this as long term, and I used the similarities of the when we worked on Web2 free to play. It took 10 years to conquer the model and make it great, and like at the current sizes, which is beyond 10 billion size companies. So we're talking about really large businesses, and that's yearly income. So what we want in this case is a team that's working with us for a very long term. Like this is something that while it looks, and we're really happy that we're making a lot of progress and we're incorporating really key people in the project that's going to help us a lot. And we have because I so far we have Trip Hopkins got to know about our project. He's the founder of Electronic Arts, and he acquired Microshocks, which is one of the companies I was part of. And then I worked with him for 7 years, and he got to know about the project, and he got interested in it and said, like, what about Manel if we work together? Said, of course, sure, because he inspires a lot of great things. Plus, he is really good, to have someone in the California area where there are so many great gaming companies, and that
Right.
can bring them to our platform. And another very key people, I will say, like we have Angus Lovett. He is the one that took Candycrush from 0 to 350 million users. And this is Angus has just so many projects on the table that want him to market games. I mean,
I
to
can
put an
imagine.
example, yeah. I mean, to put an example, for him, a project that he marketed and got to make like 100 million in 1 year. That for him was a failure. Okay. So and what was great is that Angus, when he got to know our plans at G4AL for Diamond Dreams, especially, he loved it. He said, okay, I can see a fit in the market. I can see why this works, why this is not a scam. It's a real game that we can grow and we can make it better with Web3. And he's on board. So that's also great. We'll get the
Big
first metrics
moves.
on Q1. And then if we get these plans, the numbers in terms of token demand versus supply, etc., can be even better. But that's something that you never know. No, we're doing
So,
the best we can.
so well, so far it's been really well, specifically like the announcements you've been dropping the last 2 weeks. And I see the momentum on Twitter, Seedify doing their thing. When you say token demand, right? I assume that's relative to the users on the platform. I did speak with Andrew Thomas yesterday. That's why I have this question. Let's say forecasts, right? Because I asked him some difficult question on the forecast, and he said, well, you better ask Manel. Yeah, I think the users are quite important, right? We see a lot of users without actual activity on the source itself. Well, you got 2 games good to go. What do you expect relative to the market conditions that the amount of users you could bring in, let's say, a worst, normal, best case scenario?
So basically, in the forecast that I mentioned, we are estimating to bring a total of 6.5 million installs. That's relatively conservative. Okay, we are not talking about a crazy amount. The reason is because we like to plan and do forecasts in a way that we tend to have positive surprises. So as I mentioned, we took these installs, we made the modeling in terms of token demand based on this at the value that I mentioned. And then we looked at it in a way that making sure that there is more demand than supply, even if all the token that's not in our control goes in the market. And from then on, if we have if the metrics from Diamond Dreams are way better than we have forecasted, and we can achieve like with Angus now, because that's very recent. That's before. I mean, Angus came to the equation after we did all the tokenomics. Okay,
Yeah.
but that can of course scale to a much higher number of installs, like more than.
How long do you think he needs? Because I can imagine he's a different level of genius, right? So to make the models and to implement the models, is that like a 2-3 month kind of thing, or are we more talking like 12-18 months?
No, it's about two. So basically, what will happen is that at the end of Q1 we'll start the testing, and that's a process that takes up to 3 months. With that, we estimate the lifetime value of the users, and then we start preparing the campaigns so that we scale to the maximum in a short period of time. Now, the maximum means that the number that I mentioned can grow a lot to like in the most optimistic case, let's say 20, 30 times higher. And then you of course create a massive offer demand, but all of these things you don't really know until you are there. So once we get
Sure.
to that point, we will know. But yeah, I think we've been relatively conservative when we did the estimates in the early days, because that was done quite a while ago. I think we've been having really positive surprises so far, and that's good. That's what I want. That's why we're conservative, because then you are more likely to have positive surprises. And as the platform evolves and we have more and more games at the end of the day, because we've done this massive difference where all the transactions happen actually with game gold token, it's equivalent to dollar to our economy. That creates a lot of demand for this token. So I think what's important in any utility token is that it has use. And that's what our token will have, a lot of use.
Yeah, no, makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. When we look at the short-term timeline, the Launchpad that is responsible for the main marketing push will be Seedify, well, one of the best reputations in the game. Why did you pick Seedify? From, I assume this kind of project could sign any Launchpad. Why specifically Seedify?
Well, at the beginning was Seedify. Levan got really loved the project, so he said, okay, that's looking great. So we want to make a real compromise here, and that was we felt like it's a very important launchpad, has really good reputation.
Definitely.
And we couldn't really find anything that was bad about them. Now, that's why it's the main launchpad. We are considering different launchpads. As you know, now we are going through a crypto winter. So one of the things we are also considering, because we got several feedback on that, it will be good that we postpone the pre-sale about 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. To get more engagement on it, so that we have a better sales. And part of this also will be we will also be including other launchpads, so that we have the largest possible community of investors investing in our token. Like we would like to diversify. The amount is the same,
of
so
course.
It's not that we are changing
makes sense.
the amount, but what we want to do is to diversify all of
more eyeballs
the
on
owners.
the project.
Yes.
Yeah,
because that also reduces the risk of like a major holder like doing big operations and things like that. It's always better to have it more decentralizing among many different players.
Any launchpads that have confirmed, or any launchpads that you are in active conversation with?
Not that I can say right now. I will prefer ones, because it's always complicated. I prefer once we
cheeky
have a close contract, because I call disclose things that people are not comfortable with. So let's wait until we have a close contract, and we will, as we have always done, we will disclose it, make it open to everyone.
Fair enough. Apart from the launchpads, if we go back to the private sale, which is ultimately the seed opportunity, right? There was some allocation left, and from nobody that I knew at G4AL, not even the advisors, nobody there, I've been hearing through the grapevine from other VC partners that some big guys are looking over the fence. Anything you can say about that, or also skip that question for now?
It's tricky, because these questions are, I will not like to offend any of the current private investors, So I
Sure.
can say that the private round is going very well. We are happy with what we have. We are having a very good relationship with investors. They are very engaged to the extreme that some of them are actually helping directly in the project. So they are taking an active role in the project, and that's great. And with the latest perspective and latest news, as some of the names I mentioned, that is also helping us at positioning
Oh
the
yeah, I can
company
imagine.
because that's very good news. I mean, these people. It's not that we went after them; they like the project, and that's very important. They are very experienced. They know a lot about gaming, and the fact that this picked up their attention is for a reason. In the case of Angus, is because Diamond Dreams makes sense as a product, as even if
Mm-hmm.
it's a standard game
Mm-hmm.
product, that makes sense. And with the use we are doing of blockchain, makes also sense. So it's not a scam at all. It's a project that makes real sense. And in the case of Trip, because he can really understand the subtleties of our approach to blockchain and how this will enable many, this really covers the actual needs of many of the game developers out there.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Founder to founder question. In terms of the pressure that tier one VCs might bring, of course, you must be flattered with all the attention that you're getting. People like your project, you know. Would you say that those conversations, are you more comfortable as a founder speaking with the smaller VCs on a respectable level, or the conversations you have with big VCs? We would mark them tier one, right, from our approach. What's the difference for you?
It's very interesting. It's very different approaches. Like you have without putting names, you
Mm-hmm.
have VCs that are really close. They are very engaged. They are helping us, I will say, close to a weekly basis. So really on the project and very passionate about this. And you have other extremes, like for example, we have one that without putting names, that we are postponing also because we see that they are very aggressive. They just want the token to get the token and get the sale and get really advantageous conditions. It's just like for us, it's a no. It's like it's the same for everyone, etc. And even cases like actually, the more money they move, the more aggressive they are usually. So there are cases where some of these investors will invest 20 million upwards on token, and they look for very favorable deals on their end.
So you would
So you
assume
have
as
a
well
very
the
wide spectrum of token investors.
right, but these type of investors that you just briefly spoke about, those were also the investors we would assume would dump the token for profit as soon as they can, right?
Yeah, correct. And what we're looking is because we are the first interested on because of our vesting schedule, we are being very picky on which investors we decide to bring in, because we want a long-term project, we want a healthy platform, and the only way to achieve that is by gaining trust from our community, and trust is achieved by getting results. So we need to have great games that create use for the token, and then gather more and more, especially next year, starting from Q2 very aggressively, gather more and more developers, but great developers, not just any developer, great developers that can grow our platform reputation. And over time, win this battle among many platforms and projects about whether Web3 makes sense or not, whether it will be the next big thing in gaming or not. I think that will be a very like as we get close to the end of second half of next year, for us it will be a very interesting time, because I think it's when we'll have start like having real great results.
Yeah, I mean, it will definitely be exciting. There's a question that I want to pick up, and it's kind of in line with what you just said. Let's say you mentioned a 2 to 3 week postponement on the public sale, right? In the white paper, the contractual agreement between investors is as soon as the public sale has been concluded, within 3 months thereafter will follow the token generation event. That is correct, right?
Yeah, in this specific case, if we do this update, what we want to do is we will update the white paper. So any investor on the private sale will have a fixed date, and the fixed date is the fixed date that there was before we did the change, and that's
All right.
important. Okay,
Respectfully.
yeah, that's important.
You can still do what you want as the founder, but that's also good to see that you take everybody into consideration there. What about the market conditions, right? We see on the private sale 6-month cliff, so there's no supply shock there. But I assume specifically the Launchpads, I know I speak with these kind of guys on a daily basis, they're all quite scared, right? I did see the new Seedify guarantee structure, right? I briefly spoke with Alex 2 weeks ago, just before I think he left Seedify. Is G4AL under that agreement, or was that agreement signed after they changed those rules?
So I'm not sure exactly what the rules are. So if you could specify.
It's a very long list, but I think one thing is that during the vesting, the token cannot go below the token generation event for the entire duration of the vesting, something like this. If it's more like that for 3 consecutive days, it will automatically be refunded, something like this.
No, we don't. Well, I will have to check exactly this.
For me, it doesn't make sense, right? Because the investment, that's my, when I talk with projects, I'm like, investors, they carry the risk. That's why they have the potential upsides reward. If you remove the risk for the investor, then just go to the bank, right? It's like almost the same thing. So I'm not a fan of these reserve guarantees on tokens, but it did come up. It's quite interesting. But let's move to the next question in that case. What do you think about the following, right? You conclude the public sale, then within 3 months, that's quite a long time in crypto, 90 days, the token generation event occurs. There is a TGE release for the public sale, which is 33%, right? That 33%, how would that be caught? I know it's quite little relative to the entire tokenomics, but would the first game be live by then? Or do you just, how do you see that? Is there like a liquidity pool they would sell back into if they want to dump, or?
Yeah, so to understand the first days of the platform, what we have, and that's very important, is let's look like, rather than the first month, let's look at the first 3 months to have some area. As I was mentioning before, that we have at that point 160 million of the token in the hands of investors that they can actually sell. Okay,
Do you know the dollar value for this on a quick conversion?
So that will be, I can tell you. So that's so this will be, to put it in dollar value.
Yeah.
So that will be $3 million. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. That's not a devaluation.
Is that per month or for 3 months?
That's very important. That's at listing price. Okay,
yeah,
not
yeah.
at private sale price. So if we look at private sale price, that will be a fourth of that, so $750,000. Now, the thing about this is that, as I mentioned, our expectation of demand, so the users in the game will spend 288 million token during that same period. That is probably about $4 million during that period of time, the gamers. So what we're doing here is balance. Of course, if there is too much demand versus how many the investors are willing to sell. So imagine that all the investors sell all their token during those 3 months. Then the players will need that more than the token that's been sold if it was at that price. Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore, the price in this case will have to increase versus the 0.2, and in this case will be more than 70% increase. But that's assuming that all those who hold the token are willing to sell it right
Which
then.
I also don't think is the case, right? Well, ultimately, you'll have people that don't even claim it, right? They don't even claim the tokens.
Correct, and that's where the other part of the token, which is in that case during that period, the total token that's in the market circulating. But most of it in that case is in our control because we have all the different parts, different allocations. That's 866 million. Okay, so if we see that the price goes crazy because there is a I don't know, multiplies by 100, we know that that will not be sustainable in the long term, because we know we have the tokenomics, we have an offer demand. And at that point is when we will start using token for the different allocations we have, like developers, marketing campaigns, using game for gamers, things like that. So that we will keep a balance on offer demand, so that the project always has this feeling like a very reliable project. As time goes by, the token has actually more demand, because that's the nature of our token. It's all the games in the chain use the token. So the token should have more and more demand as years go by. And then we have this steady positive like growth on the token.
So you would say slowly linear uptrend. Any spikes that come, you might just even them out from the market maker point of view.
If they are too aggressive, yeah, because that will.
No, makes sense.
I mean, that we don't want someone to buy. Imagine that you're an investor, but you are not a mature investor, and you see a token is going up real fast, and you spend a lot of money. We don't want you to lose like 75% of that money in a matter of 1 or 2 months. I mean, we want to avoid that from happening, and we want those who invest in us. Of course, you run a risk always, but we want to keep the risks to a minimum. That's what we've done with tokenomics design. What we've done with all the deals we've done so far. We've always kept all the decisions on the safest side, because you always run a risk when you run a business. We want to do all what we can so that anyone that trusted us, or even if whether it's an investor or a player or a company or that's working with us, we want to maximize the possibilities that they feel really good about the relationship with us.
And when you say safer side, could you give us 2 examples of what that means?
That means, for example, in investment, saying no, for example, on the private sale to more than 6 million euros to date, because of MAL KYC issues, because that's things that we could have accepted that amount of money. We'll have now more than sold the private. We could have even, like that will be a lot of money. The problem with all of that is that maybe in a year time or so comes back to you, and then you have to close your business, or you have a measure.
How would that come back to you?
Because if you've been part of a major money laundering scheme, and that's detected, you will be considered part of that.
Accomplice,
yeah. And that's a major issue if you're a company. So that's one example, like being like when you have the deal, it's like, well, look, we want something that's good for our investors, for our gamers, and for our staff. That risk is not worth it, because that puts them at risk as well.
Really, for the longevity of the project overall. Yeah, that makes sense.
And another example is when we've been modeling, as I put some numbers before about the total number of installs, that's way below what I've done in the past. Like in the case of Bubble Witch, for example, we reached more than 100 million installs. And within in this case we are modeling 6 million, so that's being very conservative based on previous experiences. So that's another example where we are being very careful with the numbers, so that it's always easy to fix something when you are on the positive side, but it's very hard to fix things if you are in the negative side. So we prefer to have to fix the things if there is an excess of demand and the token is like having an issue because too many people want the token and the price is like a bit going too high, than having the opposite problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair. When you say the games and the users are being acquired, or the games are being launched and the user are being acquired primarily through performance marketing, where does the ad spend come from?
So how that works is that in the case of Diamond Dreams, because that's very specific to Diamond Dreams, okay, how it works is I have to explain a bit the game so that
sure,
so that it's well understood. That game is a normal free-to-play games as a service. So basically, the basic model works with micropayments in the game to buy time. Where it gets to very much Web3 is where you have these competitions that are leagues. And teams of up to 30 people participate in these leagues. If they, depending on the ranking on the league. Once the league ends, they get an amount of NFTs of a luxury brand. Let's say this week, let's say this month, let's say it was the competition around Chanel, and then you get a Chanel bottle depending on your rank. So let's say that the team that got first got 5 Chanel bottles, and the team that got second got 3 Chanel bottles. Now, what happens with these Chanel bottles is that it's not just a normal ERC 721 NFT. It's an NFT that you can take 2 Chanel bottles and merge them into a one that's cooler. Now, actually, if you merge all the channel, you imagine that you can merge all the channel bottles in the world, then you can get an experience, which is going to channel and see the top people there. And then that experience can be
In real
sold to
life,
another
yeah.
player. So that will be, so if we look at all this model, what we have here really is a fundamental free-to-play games as a service game, as always, okay? Plus all the extra layer that can come part in the game, part will happen in other third markets like OpenSea or any other marketplace, where people will be trading this to merge these NFTs and get the cool full collection, because there is always someone, especially when you're talking about top brands, there is someone that's really passionate about that brand and wants to have this full NFT so that they can convert into a real world experience. So in this sense, what you have is you have what we call a lifetime value, which is how much revenue you will get from the user on average from any install that you get, what's the lifetime value, how much revenue that user will generate on their lifetime. And this lifetime value in this case is the lifetime value of a normal free-to-play games as a service plus all the blockchain part. Okay, this is what we'll be analyzing during Q2 next year. We'll figure out what's the lifetime value. That will give us how much we can spend, and that will actually give us the actual reach of the game, how many installs we'll get in the end. And that's how the performance marketing is structured. I have to say actually that we did some more pessimistic estimates on Elemental Riders, which is the first game that we are launching. But good, like it was very positive to see that we think that we can also invest in performance marketing in that game, because we are getting some data that indicates that is the case. So that could bring up the numbers for Elemental Riders considerably. Besides also as you know, I mentioned a partnership that cannot be disclosed still today, but I can sell that. I can say that the actual partnership is going really well, really well. We're very satisfied, and we're getting very close to the date when we will be making it public. And I think that's also really good in terms of marketing. So getting a scale, you get the scale by performance marketing. That's a great way to get scale. You get scale by partnerships, which is at the end of the day some sort of cross promotion through their platform. And then the other part is community, and the community, as you know, is looking good for us. And it's going to continue improving, I believe, especially once people can play the games. I think as the games hit the market and people realize of the business models that we have, because especially in the case of Elemental Riders, what's very important there is that we are doing a lot of improvements versus what's there in the market. And I think that will mean that many people will say, okay, with this business model, I make more money than many of the other play-to-earn games. And I think that will be word of mouth at the end of the day. Like, that's been my experience. When you offer something of real quality to consumers, they talk about it. And same for developers. As we get to next year, that when we will do the push for promoting the platform during Q2, I think a lot of the promotion won't even be done by ourselves. I think will be the same developers. They'll say, okay, if you have to do that, go with G4AL, it works. You know, that's what the type of ecosystem we want, where people actually recommend us because they see that what we are offering is the best quality possible, the best solution possible.
When you speak about the developers and the onboarding, we see a lot of blockchains use grants, for example, to build on their chain. Is there some kind of grant program coming for G4AL in the future?
We can have grants. We have that in the developer program. But back to what I was saying, I think that's an unhealthy way of doing that to a great extent.
Bribe them basically to build on your chain.
Yeah, because what you're doing with that is what you really want is the best developers, the ones that can make the best games. They will pick whatever works best for their business.
Sure.
If we give grants, you'll be giving grants to second-class developers in many cases, not always, but in some cases you will be. And at the end of the day, that will not bring quality products to your platform, which will degrade the reputation of your platform. So you're better off with one platform with only 3 games, or even 2 games that are like even one, I will say. That's top real top. Like you're better with one Fortnite than 1,000 super small games, or even a million of very bad games. You know, like you better have one. So that's how important it is in gaming to have the best products, and that's why I think that the genuine quality of the platform is very key.
Yeah, that makes sense. The grant is just something that always comes up. I see that on every chain. I'm always curious on. I assume because it's so competitive, right? But the project is definitely quite unique. I know we can't speculate too much on the token. I never want to. It's not really my thing. We'll see what happens. The price relative to utility demand, as you described it makes a lot of sense, and basic economics ultimately, right? When we look at things like the token swap, right? Launching on Ethereum, then being bridged later. What do you think about the security of bridges and the problems that come with it in regards to the hacks? Yesterday, I spoke with an analyst on an advisory call regarding Harmony One, which basically the whole blockchain is being destroyed because they can't depack their stable coin, and now they made some stupid plan, which I also think is not going to work. Somebody asked my opinion on it. What do you think about these bridges and the potential risk of using them? Because apparently they seem super sensitive to hacks.
They are. So when you talk about, so there is one thing on the underlying architecture of blockchain that is very important to understand. Most of the blockchains right now work with private public key. That makes the access anonymous, and that makes them way more prone to hacking than a blockchain where it's authenticated by a user password and 2FA. Okay, that's a very different access method, and that makes a huge difference in terms of hacking. So I can tell you that my engineers were was talking with one engineer the other day, and he was telling me like how much safer our chain bridges were thanks to the approach on authenticating users. So that makes it a lot.
Is that what they mean with permission based, or is that something else?
Well, it's permission, yeah. That will be permission based, yeah. Once you have a bridge that's permission, then the security increases a lot versus a permissionless bridge. That's for sure.
Is there, let's say, an option? Because that's something I like. I like these agencies that are being hired to basically try and hack the code. And if they can, like a sort of kind of like high skill bounty program, is that something that you would consider?
Well, we have that. We have that. We've already done that. That not only on the chain but also on the games. I think that's very fundamental. You have to do that. You have to get as many, and even considering more than one company doing that. So we are. That's one of the considerations we have. We work with a very talented team, and we're considering another one also to have a double view on the same. That's I think that's basic. That's for your like to sleep better at night. I think that's something you must do. It's not. I think it's not even a choice.
How much does that cost? Like,
not that much. No? It did cost us, I think, 8,000. Well, I mean, it's not cheap, but something about $8,000. I will have to check now exactly.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not.
To prevent a $10 million hack, it's all good.
that's the thing. If you think about the trade-off, it's really good. It's really good to have this type of checks done.
Really I feel like these questions are usually not asked until it's too late. So I'm just going to throw them in. When we circle back to the token sale, do you know what the initial market cap is on the token generation event?
Yeah. So for all the all the supply. So what will be in total amount of token, as I mentioned, it's 866 million. Okay. Then
That's tokens or US dollars?
that's tokens. Now
Okay.
the total depends on the valuation. So how at which price you want to when you say the market cap will be at the listing price, I guess.
Yeah, at the pre-sale price. I assume the listing price will be the pre-sale price.
It's slightly higher in our case. So if we put the if we use the pre-sale price, that's $10 million.
And that's the initial market cap not fully diluted, right?
Well, that's the fully circulating supply. Okay. So yeah. So what if you want is the
market cap for only the tokens that are being released on the TG, and then the dollar value.
The market cap for the tokens that are released during the TG. You mean like on the pre-sale, the private sale, or the total supply that's circulating supply at the TG?
Yeah, total circulating supply on the TG, because the private sale wouldn't release any tokens. Only what liquidity is excluded, marketing is excluded, in-game is excluded. Yeah, so basically only the 33% of the pre-sale.
Okay. So you will have private sale at 0 at you mean month 1, so that will be pre-sale. It's 41 million, more 41,662. The token for in-game, which is one that is controlled by G4AL, is 20 million. We have 65 million of marketing, also controlled by G4AL, and we have the liquidity part, which is 180 million. That's the one used for liquidity for the platform.
And those numbers are tokens, just to specify that those are not US dollars before people panic.
Correct. and that's in tokens, and that's a total of 307. So now if we use the price of, for example, 0012, which is the 12.5, which is the price on the pre-sale, what we'll have is $3.8 million.
Yeah, but in that case, the pre-sale is such a small. The pre-sale supply shock is only, let's say, just top of my head, about 250K, right? Maybe even less. Just only the pre-sale.
Yeah, it's very small. I can quantify it. So exactly at
that's what interests people, like G4AL is not going to dump the tokens. Liquidity is liquidity. The marketing is going to be in the marketing wallet.
That's 260K.
Ooh, I was close. 260K. When we look at the difference, you mentioned the difference between the pre-sale price and the actual listing price. Why did you decide to put a difference between those two?
Because if as I mentioned, like the tokenomics were done quite a while ago, and what we found is that the demand that we expect, it was a bit higher than the offer. So the first sales, if they are done at a higher price, that attenuates a bit that discrepancy, that there is an over demand in the forecast. We have an over demand during the first period, so it's good that the price goes a bit higher during that period.
So assumingly a natural pattern would be, what is the percentage difference between the pre-sale and the actual listing? Is it like 10%, something like this? 20%?
Yeah, it's more actually. It's in total the adjustment that we felt we had to do. I'll tell you now. It's 60%.
60%
increase.
All right. So based on my experience with retail investors, which is a lot, and the way they think relative to the current market conditions, I think any Launchpad participant for a 33% access will dump these tokens for a 60% gain or less, right? For a 15% gain, they will let go of their tokens. just because of the mindset of these individuals. And there's nothing on them. It's just a lot of profit for them, right? Respectfully. What do you think the demand that you previously referred to, would that capture that potential supply to the market?
Yeah, I think so, because at the end of the day, that's gamers that want to play the game. So it's based on that forecasting. So if at the end of the day, it's like how many tokens are there? I need the tokens to buy things in the game. If I want to buy an item that's worth $100, and depending on the value of the game gold token, I'll need more or less game gold token. So if the value of the game gold token is low, then the problem you have is that there is a lot of people willing to buy a lot of token, and then you have this massive spike all of a sudden because we created like an excess demand.
Yeah, that makes sense. So relative on the timeline from the token generation event, before or after, how long does the first games launch basically?
The first game launches straight with the first with the TG. That's the reason why we have this demand at the beginning. So
okay.
they are coordinated launches. That's what goes
you
into
smart.
the spike. Well,
I didn't expect anything else from you. Okay, that's very nice. That's very good. Because that's a question that came up a lot, but now it makes sense, right? There's a potential minor dump, right? But that dump will basically be wiped by the amount of users that want to play the game and the marketing and the hype.
Correct, and we because we're talking about 260 thousand.
Yeah, one VC could even take it away if they wanted to.
And that is we and just to be clear, like I'm decoupling completely investors and what investors do. I'm saying just gamers they will spend more than $260,000 in the game on that month we expect. So therefore any speculation that happens on top of that will make the early days of the token can be difficult, because you have demand from gamers and demand from investors.
I can imagine
that to be balanced.
The 6 million that you rejected, there must be some people in that pool as well that might just try on TGE, the earliest opportunity that they get, wipe the 250K. And then because obviously it's not that much, right? 250K relative to the project. I think that's important to note for everybody listening. 250K on a, let's say on an empty metaverse game that has no utility is very different than an entire blockchain with 2 games and basically a very strong team behind it. Important to consider.
But if you think about games, to put some numbers, like the last projects that I launched, the one that made the lowest revenue per year, that's very important. I'm talking about yearly revenue, not lifetime, which is much higher than. The one that did the least, if I'm not wrong, was around 25 million. Okay, and the one that performed the best was above, like close to 200 million or so. So
maybe we should build a game together, you and me.
What I mean is that is actually people that will need token to buy things, because at the end of the day, these people will take token from the market and buy things in the game, and that's where the offer demand goes crazy. So we did change the numbers and model everything like low, being very conservative, saying like people will take longer to get people to use this type of games, etc. But we could way be wrong. I mean, we have to see. We have to see once we launch.
That's the exciting part. That's why we like crypto. I think even with the market conditions, games take time to build. Ultimately, specifically if games build on your chain, but overall, a lot of eyes are focused obviously on the bad market conditions. But I think it's a perfect time to start because you have time to test everything properly. There's not too much pressure. All these things.
And Colin, gamers don't care about the status of the market. Investors, we have demand from 2 sides here. We have demand from investors, who, of course, are massively affected by market conditions, but we have demand from gamers. And the gamers are completely they will work with very different rules, like what's the offering, do I have a better game outside that works better and offers the same things like that, while investors will be, is this token worth it, how many people actually are needing the token, is it a token that's popular among people, or it's a token that it's not used by anyone, or it's just like pure, like there are tokens that all the traffic is just among investors, and that is a huge risk, because that means that
Definitely.
as soon as there is a crash, the token goes down like crazy.
Panic. Yeah.
I think what's important in a token, or at least that when we did all the tokenomics, etc., what most important of a token is to make sure that people will be using the token, because they will be the stable part. If you look at the metrics of a game, especially when it's games as a service, it's very stable over time. So you look at the performance like of Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, Candycrush, League of Legends, you'll see that the revenue stream is very stable year over year. It doesn't change, go up and down a lot. That means that there will be a steady demand of token, and that creates a very solid foundation for the valuation of the token. That's why I think for tokens based on gaming platforms like ours, especially if they are full, like as I mentioned, like if you look at Immutable X is only for the commission, but if it's for anything like it's way more, like it's as we mentioned, like it's 50 times more used than in the case of a token like the one in Immutable X. That makes the token very stable, and then for also it's a safer environment for investors. It's similar to the stock market. You can invest in stocks that have a solid business behind, that they basically make a certain amount of revenue per month, etc. You heard probably many times Warren Buffett about Coca-Cola. Okay, so you can have a Coca-Cola, or you can have a Tesla, where actual revenue versus what they do versus what they expect, it's risky, but at least there is a possibility that they make it. And then you have the other extreme, where our businesses that they are nothing, and they are pure speculation. They did a joke with that. I think it was with GameStop, the shop, where it's just artificially they ramped up the price completely, just for the
they
sake
dump
of
the tokens at the top, right?
So you can see that happening in the stock market. So the way we are in that sense is more of a Coca-Cola. You know, like we're trying to build a very solid foundation so that in 10 years we can cash out the rewards of all this work.
Yeah, so slow, linear, better than all the upside downside kind of thing. It's also quite stressful in my opinion, but it's never truly linear as long as the vision is there. I think overall the opportunities are quite significant. Perhaps not in the short term because of the scale of the project, but definitely in the long term. I think any investor on the retail side that the vision is aligned with the gaming and metaverse will be the next big push in crypto. Then, well, for me, you know, we had one conversation. It was a no-brainer for me, at least, and I hope everybody in the Digits Club can agree on that. On DigitsPad, 9th of November, we'll see. I'll keep the spread proper, but everybody is really excited. So I definitely thank you for being here once more. The token is always my favorite. I know a lot of people like to learn about the project, but the token, that's the favorite part in terms of the utility. Depending on the questions we get, I might invite you once more if I can.
Sure. If I'm more than keen on answering any questions. And also, you mentioned from the previous call, if there was anything that was unclear or needs clarification, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to give you answers to any of your questions. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we covered everything on this one. But for the next time, I'll let you know. Everybody that watched this live, thank you so much for attending and for your questions. Manel, thank you for being here once more. And for everybody that made it for the full hour, I appreciate you watching Digits Agents NFT Mint on Monday, 7th of November, and then the G4AL opportunity for all active stakers on November 9th. Thank you, everybody. Manel, I hope you have a great day. Time to relax, and we'll see you on the next one.
Perfect. Thank you, Colin. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.